Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Andrew Capel. Let's get started. All right, welcome to another episode of the Why, What, How podcast. Joined here with data, marketing automation, Lucasfilms pioneer. You know, you have a lot in your background, but we're not going to talk too much about that. But Nick, welcome, and would love to hear about why you got started with Syncari.
Awesome. Hey, Andrew, first of all, thank you for having me on the show, and I appreciate the time that you're going to share with me here. So why Syncari? So again, you mentioned I was at Marketo. We started the business largely off of the learnings that we had at Marketo. One of the things that we did really well at Marketo was connect Salesforce and Marketo together with a synchronization engine that we had built at Marketo. Very different than traditional iPaaS or connection, oriented type exchanges. We wanted to make sure that those two things were always identical at all times. And that expanded out into other CRMs that we connected to at Marketo. And so I started thinking about the data problem that was happening at Marketo with the explosion of data that was going on in marketing at the time, and that this was, making its way into other systems that were around Marketo and integrations into Marketo that was clobbering Marketo data. And we couldn't build sync interfaces for everything. So we're seeing, data in Marketo get clobbered, and now we clobber data in Salesforce, and people were complaining that Marketo was doing the wrong thing. Anyway, fast forward, those kinds of things in the operational sense of Marketo were happening, even though customers were enjoying the things that Marketo did for them for go-to-market. So I said, hey, look, there's got to be a better way. We looked at what was out there in the market, and we saw that there really wasn't anything that was doing synchronization that was stateful across all these connections. And so we want to first start by saying, hey, could we really invent a multi-directional version of what that would look like? This sort of hub and spoke, stateful, eventual consistent synchronization engine for APIs inside of SaaS applications. So we had a patent issued to us up for that, and that was the precursor that became Syncari. So the why is essentially data was messed up. We saw it at Marketo. It was getting worse and worse with everything that we saw happening in marketing, and we just want to try and figure out how to fix that. That was different than what the 20-year-old MDMs and iPaaS and everything that was in the market was doing at the time.
Yeah. And so you did some innovative work at Marketo to solve a customer pain point. And then, did you immediately realize that this problem was a massive problem everywhere? Or did you think it was just a, marketing automation to CRM system issue?
No, we thought it was a massive problem everywhere, because what we saw happening in Marketo was like, hey, I want to get my Zendesk data inside of Marketo. And then those would come in through iPaaS connections, and it would, it just created this mess. We saw like, God, I see what people are trying to do. They're trying to distribute their truth and their data across all their systems so that they can either build the right campaigns or the salespeople can do the right things based on what's going on in success or support and the normal go-to-market processes that we know about. So we thought it was going to be a huge thing that, the last frontier, so to speak, was data. We built all these SaaS applications. Each one of them became their own silo. How do we get these silos to interoperate? And the whole data part of this equation and synchronization became part of what we wanted to do.
Yeah. So how has the product and the platform evolved over the last couple of years? Because things have been happening fast in the market.
Yeah, I mean, so we started out by saying, hey, can we actually build a multi-directional sync engine? So we started off with building that, and we did, and we got a patent issued for that, like I mentioned earlier. And then we said, okay, great. What's the product look like that we want to go after? So we originally said, what we want to build is a master data management platform, but we want to build it in a way that the mere mortal, is what we used to say back in the day, in sales ops or revenue operations that was emerging at the time, could be in control of their own destiny. So what we set out to do was build a low-code, no-code platform that we thought that if you were good in a spreadsheet and you were good in let's say in Salesforce administration, you could pick up something like Syncari and get your data congruent across all your environments. We coined that as data automation. So thinking we came out of market automation, we tried to do this data automation play. We sort of pioneered that category that even other companies tried to usurp during that time. And so that's how we got started, and we closed our first set of customers doing that. So the evolution that you were asking about has been like, well, based on what's been going on in the market, and what's been going on in sales ops and marketing ops, especially those ops roles, and the spending inside of organizations, we said, hey, look, that's not going to grow fast enough for us. We got to get out into other ICPs that are more, higher ACVs and things like that, and that are more stable. So we moved into what we're calling agentic MDM. And so the thing that we built was an MDM, was a next generation MDM is what we built. And so now we're selling it as the agentic MDM platform for not just solving the master data problems that businesses have today, data automation, et cetera, but also enabling them to be able to do their AI projects and their AI testing that they want to do with their agent frameworks and other things that are going on. For example, Syncari can be an MCP server now that provides resources and provides tools and things like that out of the central store that we have. We continue to add, lineage capabilities, not just for the data changes and the transactional changes that happen with lineage around what happens in Syncari, but now, the agents are actually authenticating in through MCP services, and now you can get lineage on what your agents are doing inside of the environment, and access to tools. Tools for us as pipelines. Our pipelines can be called as a tool through an MCP service, and you can actually say, oh, I want to transform this data. Here's the data. Send me the answer so that my agent can then go on to the next thing. And so all that's possible in Syncari today.
Wow. Why don't you talk about legacy MDM and then the new flavor, the source side and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, when MDM started, there was like 4 basic ways of implementing MDM. And the way we went about it is like, hey, look, what's the hardest one that people are struggling with the most? And what we saw was that in this, this world that people were in, the coexistence aspect of what we were doing. Sorry, I lost the, there it is. I lost the screen there. The coexistence part of MDM is what we wanted to solve. So most people were thinking MDM was like this head-end thing that I would, build ETLs and run ETLs to some head-end location. And I've got master data over there, and I've normalized it, I've cleaned it up, and it's perfect over there. And maybe I can run a report over there, but the operational systems that were still siloed were all messed up. And so what we wanted to do was like, okay, what's the next level? So then there's the other companies in the market that did, more modern SaaS versions of MDM that tried to get data back into the remote systems. But again, they were not getting the same data into all systems at the same time. And so that left a lot of, clobbered data in these other systems. We said, hey, look, the way to solve this is to do the coexistence play, where the data is exactly the same at the source side as it is on the master side. Right. And so that's what we went after. And how do we do this across all the different systems? And that's what we bring to the table. That's very different than what came before us. Not to mention that it's all one complete platform as opposed to different modules that you'd have, like, not to pick on the biggest incumbent in this space, but that's like 12 different products you need to integrate in order to
cobble together. Yeah, it's like the HubSpot crafted, not cobbled. Yeah,
100%. So it fully integrated, fully source side MDM, fully synchronized, all the data tools that you want, transformations, normalizations, et cetera, all in one platform with visualizations for that data is something that we built into Syncari. So like soup to nuts is the way I like to say it.
Yeah, that is amazing. And yeah, I think back to some of the bigger companies I used to work with and work for, and we had a chief data officer, and they were, hey, we're going to fix everything. We're going to put Databricks involved. We're going to take the data out of Salesforce and HubSpot, and like we created this Power BI dashboard, and then the team, like, it wasn't an operational dashboard, and so just started decaying almost immediately. And
it decays immediately, and that's what we see in a lot of customers. It's like that have done either the modern data stack, the roll your own, the ETLs, the data warehouse play. It's like it sounds like the same thing to most people, and it sounds good, but in practice, if you don't have source side mastering of that data with the head end at the same time across all of them, you're going to eventually drift, and then eventually it's going to be meaningless, and then people lose faith.
They don't trust the data.
They don't trust the data anymore, and all these things happen all the time. So.
Yeah. Now this might be a little bit of like a quasi admin nerdy question, but like, does Syncari like have a user in the CRM system, the marketing automation system, the customer success, the billing system, and then like if there's an edit, it says made by the Syncari data platform, like as the user, or what?
Yeah, exactly right. Even better, it's like we actually know all the changes that have happened in the system as well. But if there's a change coming from another system into, let's say somebody changed something in HubSpot and it's going to end up in Salesforce. In Salesforce, it looks like the Syncari user made this
Yeah.
update. But if you go to Syncari, you'll see the lineage and you'll see the exact system that made that change and the diff of that change and all of that as well. So it looks that way in the end system, but you have the governance and controls in Syncari to know what exactly happened and
Yeah.
why.
So you architected this thing as a platform from the get-go because there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that it does, and like you can't just like, as to your point, like cobble stuff together. I don't think you guys have made any acquisitions. It's like, it's crafted
No.
from the ground up.
Yep. Varsha, who heads our engineering, and Nilesh, who's our CTO and co-founder. This is a full platform that we built from the ground up, and we have an amazing engineering team here that can do some amazing things. And so not only is it done, but it's done very well, and it works very well. And we've got the large enterprises to prove that it works very well and can easily supplant a lot of the incumbent things that are happening before. Even though we're little Syncari, we can handle the workloads and the capabilities of these much larger, actually, and more than some of these large platforms can even handle themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the fact that you're doing the MCP server support now, like you guys are lightning quick. So you have a solid foundation. You're not just tacking on, silly AI stuff. This is like, it's built in.
No, and so the way we think of it as Syncari, just on the AI question, is we think of AI happening inside of Syncari and AI outside of Syncari. Mm-hmm. So inside of Syncari, it's like, how do we make data management easier, more autonomous, simpler to do? Like, for example, if we have an auto mapper, right, that maps systems. You say, you connect the three systems. You say, here's the schema from these three systems in Syncari. You say, build me a map of how these would all integrate, and it automatically builds you the field mappings for all of this. And you decide, like, I want this to be multi-directional, unidirectional, source side, destination side, etc. And then you publish that, and like that, you essentially connect three systems very quickly now. Yeah. So that's an example of where AI helps us map systems. You're going to be able to have the ability to say, hey, I need a pipeline that connects contacts across these three systems and merges and dedupes and does all the things you want to do, and it'll build you the pipelines and the merge and dedupe rules to go do all that automatically. So that's AI inside of Syncari. Outside of Syncari is what we spoke about earlier, which is how do we enable multi-agent frameworks? How do we enable multi-agent cooperation and collaboration across? Because you're not just going to be a company that says, hey, I bought one agent framework and that's what I'm going to use for everything. It's not going to work that way. You're going to have agents inside of Salesforce, inside of HubSpot, inside of your custom agent frameworks that you have. You might have multiple agent frameworks, one in IT, one in engineering. The common thread across all of that is going to always be data. And so we want to be that thing that makes your data congruent, whether it's your stuff that you're building, the agents you're building in Salesforce, or the stuff you're building in HubSpot.
That's great. Now, last question, Nick, is from your experience, obviously you have the product background. You've led a couple of companies, including Syncari and another company that was acquired before that. But like you also, before that, you were at Marketo, so it's a legendary, the company that built the marketing automation category. So how do you help data executives and how do you help your customers? Like you have the technical product hat and then you have the marketing hat, and you're trying to demonstrate the value and why they need to invest and get a solution for the data. So how do you approach being a technical and marketing founder?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we initially tried to help the go-to-market engine become more efficient, and we're going to continue to try and help people become more efficient, and especially in this market that we're in now, where everyone's running towards efficiency, less people, less tools, do more. Everything that we sell right now is like, hey, we can help you do what those 4 tools did for you at $200,000, $300,000 a year. Little Syncari can do for 150 grand a year and more for your environment. So how do you become more efficient? How do you do more in your go-to-market in order to get to, efficiency leads to better CAC, better metrics all around for your business. And we approach it from, hey, if I could move your CAC needle by 2%, does that mean meaningful to you? Yeah, well, here's where we can move your CAC needle by 2% because you're doing all these things over here that are double, triple effort around the same kind of thing. And we can remove some of those capabilities or those things.
Yeah, so it's doing more with less by utilizing the platform and making the business work better with trusted data.
I didn't want to say the do more with less because it's become a very
cliche
term.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Nick, we're coming up at the 15-minute mark. Where should we point folks to who are interested in learning more?
Syncari.com. I think the best way to get started with us is one of two ways. If you're technical and you want to get started with Syncari, I would do a test drive off of our website. And when you do a test drive, you have access to full documentation and all our certifications in our academy. So you can become a Syncari certified expert for free. And then the other way is if you're, just want to kick the tires and talk to people about what is Syncari really about, you just use the other one, which is the demo page or the contact us page, and we'll do a custom demo for any business user that's out there in the market.
Awesome. That's yeah, you have there's a lot of capabilities and you're solving a lot of problems. So thanks, Nick, for coming on.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks for checking out the show. Please follow along on YouTube, LinkedIn, and wherever you get your podcasts.